Hello everyone, it's great to see you back on my channel. Today, we'll continue with the heartfelt story of CEO James and Diep, a journey of love, sacrifice, and unending challenges. In previous episodes, we witnessed the sacred moment when James and Diep officially married, closing a long chapter of turbulence. They didn't just become husband and wife, they became each other's steadfast emotional anchor. Soon after, they chose to open their hearts and adopt little Nee. She had known hardship from a young age, but now she lives in the loving embrace of a complete family. From that day on, Nee's laughter has been a never-ending source of joy in their home. Their happiness grew even fuller when Diep became pregnant. The child soon to be born is the crystallization of the love and bond that James and Diep have built together. Their little home now feels brighter, filled with eager anticipation. And yet, they have never let Nee feel neglected. On the contrary, they always make sure she knows she is still a vital part of the family, a beloved child, cherished and protected like any other. However, life isn't always as smooth as a dream. In today's episode, an unexpected trial arrives. This small family, who seemed to have everything, love, trust, and plans for the future, now stands before a daunting test. This storm may shake the happiness they've just nurtured, or it may become the crucible that forges their love and faith even stronger. Do James and Diep have the resilience to face it together and protect their growing home, with Nee and the baby on the way? Will these difficulties bring an end to their peaceful days, or open a new chapter where they understand and cherish one another even more? Watch closely in today's video to follow every detail and experience the full range of emotions in this story. At dawn, when a thin mist still covered the thatched rooftops, Diep awoke. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the leaves in the garden, casting pale golden streaks across the porch. From afar came the faint crow of a rooster, mingling with the gentle fragrance of dew-kissed flowers and grass, making the air feel fresh and pure. She smoothed back her hair, slipped on a familiar brown shirt worn at the shoulders, and carried a bamboo basket out to the garden behind the house. The pear trees stood lush and green in the morning light, their branches heavy with fruit swaying gently in the breeze. On each pear, crystal dewdrops sparkled like jewels, reflecting the shimmering sun. Carefully, tenderly, she reached out to pick them, as though afraid of scratching their taut skins. The soft thud of pears falling into the basket, the cheerful chirping of birds hopping between branches, the whisper of the wind through the leaves, all blended into a delicate symphony of rural morning labor. Gradually, her basket filled with pears, their sweet scent drifting around her, bringing a satisfied smile to her face. When both baskets were full, she placed them on a carrying pole and lifted it onto her shoulders. Step by step along the red earth village path still damp with dew, the rhythmic creak of the pole echoed like the familiar heartbeat of the countryside. By the roadside, children chattered as they walked to school, and farmers on their way to the fields greeted her with friendly nods and smiles. At the market, the scene was already lively. The hum of chatter, bargaining, and vendor calls merged into a vibrant harmony. Sellers displayed vegetables, meat, fish, and clothing, their colors crowding beneath bright green and red tarps. The bustling atmosphere was as warm and familiar as a vivid village painting. Diep chose a small corner to sit and carefully arranged the shiny pears, stacking them neatly in appealing piles. With a gentle smile, she greeted customers in a soft, warm voice. A middle-aged woman stopped by, exclaiming, "Diep, your pears look so fresh. Just looking at them makes me want to taste one." Another man quickly chimed in. "Weigh me 2 kilos, please. We have guests today, I'll add some fruit to the meal." Diep swiftly yet gracefully weighed and wrapped the fruit, her hands moving with practiced ease, while she chatted warmly. "How is your vegetable garden these days?" "Thank you, let me pick the best ones for you." Every word carried sincerity and friendliness. Customers weren't only pleased by the delicious pears, but also by the welcoming heart of the young woman. Amid the market's noisy bustle, her gentle smile shone like a beacon, keeping her stall constantly busy as word spread from one shopper to another that they simply had to buy from her. While Diep was still busy selling at the distant market, James took the chance to finish his work and went to pick up little Nee. The walk from school to home wasn't very long, but for James, every step beside his daughter was special. Her tiny hand fit perfectly into his large, warm palm. Now and then, the little girl skipped a few steps ahead, then hurried back to tug at his hand, chattering away about her day at school, how the teacher praised her drawing, how her friend Lon gave her a piece of candy, or how she was chosen to help clean the classroom. James listened intently, smiling and nodding, his eyes filled with tenderness as he watched her innocent gestures. When they arrived home, James carefully hung his jacket, washed his hands, and began preparing a meal for Nee. Though simple, he poured his heart into every detail: a fragrant bowl of white rice, a few pieces of shredded boiled chicken, and a bowl of hot soup with fresh green vegetables. He placed the small bowl of rice in front of her and gently said, "Go ahead and eat, sweetheart. I cooked this just for you today." Nee sat quietly, holding her spoon with both little hands, slowly lifting each bite. From time to time, she looked up at her father with a radiant smile, lighting up James's face in return. Patiently, he cooled the meat before placing it into her bowl and softly reminded her, "Eat slowly, don't rush or you might choke, dear." The meal went by with bursts of laughter, sprinkled with Nee's innocent little stories. After she finished eating, James tidied up, then took out a stack of fresh white paper, laying it neatly on the table. He opened a box of bright crayons, slid it toward her, and smiled. "Now, let's do some coloring together." He sat beside her, guiding her step by step. "Sit up straight, that's right, good job. Hold the paper with your left hand, and grip the crayon firmly with your right." Nee listened carefully, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Her tiny hand clutched a red crayon, scribbling the first strokes across the page. Sometimes the color strayed outside the lines, making her giggle, before she sat upright again to try once more. Watching her, James felt a swell of indescribable pride. Not stopping at coloring, James also took the chance to teach her some simple English words. He pointed to the bright red apple she had just colored and pronounced clearly, "Apple." Nee repeated, her voice still a little lisped. "A-pa." James chuckled, gently patting her head. "Well done, almost perfect. You'll get it right next time." Picking up a yellow crayon, he drew a small banana and said, "Banana." Nee eagerly echoed, "Ba-nana." Finally, James sketched a cute little cat with pointed ears and said, "Cat." Nee's eyes sparkled as she laughed and repeated, "Cat." Her bright laughter filled the small home, making it warmer than ever. James sat there, quietly watching his daughter color and chatter as she learned her first words. His heart overflowed with a happiness so simple yet so profound. To witness Nee growing day by day, to share every meal, every drawing, every new word with her, that was the priceless gift life had given him. That afternoon, as the last rays of sunlight lingered on the treetops by the village lane, James finished his work and headed to the kitchen. The tall foreign man looked a bit awkward in a coarse apron, yet his face showed focus and patience. He carefully washed each sprig of greens, each tender leaf still damp with dew, freshly picked from the garden behind the house. Every slow, deliberate movement seemed to carry with it the love of a husband and father. After cleaning the chicken, James cut it into bite-sized pieces and set it in the pot. Soon the bubbling sound filled the air, steam rising thickly and spreading through the small kitchen. The gentle aroma of boiling chicken gradually permeated the house, blending with the warmth of the wood smoke, evoking the comfort of family gatherings. Once the vegetables were blanched, he neatly arranged them on a plate, their fresh green shining under the soft yellow light. Just then, Diep returned from the market. Dust still clung to her shoulders, and her arms were heavy with shopping bags. As she stepped onto the porch, she saw her husband bustling about in the kitchen, sweat beading on his brow but his eyes glowing with warmth. The sight made her laugh, a pure, tender laugh, like a breeze sweeping away fatigue. Hearing her, James looked up, their eyes met, and he smiled too, a simple smile full of sharing. She quickly set down her bags and joined him, adjusting the seasoning of the soup, adding a pinch of salt and a sprinkle of chopped scallions. The fragrance grew richer, wrapping the kitchen in homely warmth. They didn't need many words, a glance, a nod, or a brush of the hand was enough. Their simple movements, combined, turned cooking into a quiet ritual of togetherness, a living proof of their love and unity. By dusk, the family sat together around a humble yet abundant meal. The glow of the oil lamp cast warm light over their bright faces. Little Nee chattered nonstop about her day, her morning art class, the drawings her father praised, and the new English words she practiced with eager determination. Her clear voice rang out like a cheerful melody. Diep listened with a gentle smile, occasionally placing more vegetables or chicken into her daughter's bowl, her eyes shining with contentment and happiness. James sat quietly, watching mother and child, his heart filling with a rare sense of peace. For him, no banquet could compare to this moment, three souls gathered, chirping away like young birds in their cozy nest. In the middle of the meal, James softly set down his chopsticks. His deep voice was calm, hesitant, but sincere. "I want to teach you how to ride a motorbike, so later you can take me to school more easily, without too much trouble." Diep paused, her eyes reflecting surprise. Then she smiled gently and shook her head. "I'd rather spend more time gardening and selling at the market." "You'll handle taking her to school, I feel reassured that way." James gazed at her, his eyes steady and tender. He didn't argue or insist, only nodded with a warm smile. In that look was understanding, sharing, and unspoken love. In that moment, both realized, happiness isn't about who does more or sacrifices more, but about shared purpose, each willingly taking on a part of the responsibility to keep their home filled with laughter. The modest countryside kitchen, with its steaming soup, fresh greens, and simple meal, suddenly felt warmer than ever. Not because of the food itself, but because of the presence of three people, three hearts beating in harmony. It was the heartbeat of love, of belonging, and of a complete family. Late at night, when the little house had fallen into silence, Diep and little Nee were already resting after a long, busy day. In the bedroom, the steady breathing of the child mingled with Diep's gentle tossing, creating a warm, quiet lull. Outside, the night breeze slipped through the bamboo groves, carrying the faint fragrance of garden flowers, deepening the stillness of the atmosphere. In the small study tucked in the corner of the house, James remained awake. He sat upright at a wooden desk, the lamp casting light over the papers and stretching his shadow long across the wall. In front of him lay a stack of documents, contracts, and an open laptop. The pen in his hand moved steadily across the pages, pausing now and then to underline a crucial point or jot down a note. Though the hour was late, there was no sign of fatigue on his face. On the contrary, his expression radiated focus, responsibility, and determination. He was drafting a grapefruit export contract, an important order that could bring greater economic stability to his family and to the local farming collective. After carefully reviewing every clause, James opened his email, attached the draft, and sent it to Hung, his trusted colleague and close friend. Alongside it, he added a note, "Hung, please review this contract for me. Check every detail thoroughly before printing and signing. This shipment is critical, We can't afford any mistakes." For a moment, his fingers lingered on the keyboard before pressing send, his eyes reflecting a hint of tension, as though entrusting a heavy responsibility to his partner. In the stillness of the room, only the soft scratch of pen on paper and the whisper of the wind outside could be heard. James's eyes, thoughtful yet resolute, remained fixed on his work. He knew that every line in this contract was more than numbers and clauses. It carried the hopes of his family and the farmers who had devoted themselves day and night to the orchards, placing their trust in him. One late afternoon, as the last light of day slowly faded, James wrapped up his work and decided to visit his mother. Along the familiar village road, rows of trees cast their slanting shadows, yellow leaves drifting down with each gentle breeze. The twilight air carried a melancholy stillness, like a muted layer of paint over the countryside. Near the gate, James paused for a moment, lifting his gaze to the bougainvillea in full bloom. Bright pink blossoms spilled over the porch roof, delicate petals falling and rustling in the evening wind. The sight stirred childhood memories, running carefree under that very trellis with friends, hearing his mother's voice calling from the kitchen. But today, though the scene remained unchanged, his heart was weighed down by unease. His footsteps echoed evenly on the tiled path leading inside. The wooden door was ajar. The living room felt unusually quiet. His mother sat on the old wooden sofa, her back slightly bent, her face heavy with thought. In front of her, a cup of tea had long since gone cold, its steam vanished, proof she had been sitting there for quite some time. Her eyes were distant, shadowed with sorrow. At the sound of his familiar steps, she looked up. Joy flickered briefly in her eyes at seeing her son, only to be quickly clouded by worry. "James," she sighed, her voice hoarse. "Your father is very firm. He told me that now you and Diep have your own child, there's no need to adopt little me. He even said that if you refuse, he'll return home immediately to put a stop to it himself." James froze, his shoulders trembling slightly. His heart clenched, as though gripped in a vice. Slowly, he moved forward and sat across from her. His hands clasped tightly on his knees, his eyes fell to the floor in silence. But after a deep breath, he lifted his gaze to meet hers. In those eyes, grief gave way to a steady flame of resolve. His voice was deep, clear, each word carving itself into the quiet air. "Mother, I cannot do that. Nee is not just some child who happened to come into our lives. She is part of our family. Even if Diep and I now have a biological child, Nee will always be our daughter. I cannot, and will never, abandon her." His mother's eyes trembled at his words. In her son, she saw the same steadfastness she had once known in her husband's youth, but this time tempered with a boundless compassion. Her voice quavered, caught between sorrow and helplessness. "I understand. Little me is a good girl, gentle, deserving of love. I've always treated her as my own grandchild. But your father, he says adoption will invite gossip. Our relatives have always been strict, and he fears losing face, fears the family's disapproval. He doesn't think about her feelings, only about honor and so-called tradition." James listened, his jaw tightening, eyes burning with conviction. Suddenly, he reached out and grasped her frail, wrinkled hands. The warmth of his palm made her shudder slightly. His voice was firm, leaving no room for doubt. "Mother, I will face everything. Let people whisper, let relatives judge, I do not fear that. Raising a child, giving her a home, shaping her future, this is not a burden, nor a shame. On the contrary, it is good, it is an honor. It is my responsibility, and the happiness that Diep and I have chosen. I will protect me, and I will protect this family to the very end." His words rang out like a vow etched in stone. His mother sat motionless, tears spilling down her cheeks despite her attempt to hold them back. She covered her mouth, her whole body trembling with emotion and love for her son. At last, she nodded, her voice breaking yet resolute. "I believe in you, James. I will stand by you and Diep. No matter how your father protests, I will defend you both, and I will defend little me. I won't let anyone hurt her, not even your father." The room fell silent. The ticking of the wall clock echoed, blending with the rustle of the bougainvillea outside. James slowly stood, walked over, and embraced his mother tightly. The elderly woman pressed against his shoulder, crying yet smiling through her tears, as though a great weight had been lifted. In that moment, James's eyes shone with unshakable determination, while his mother's heart swelled with pride. Though storms lay ahead, she knew her son would stand firm. And she knew, no matter what forces opposed them, the love and protection they gave little me would never waver. Holding his mother close, James stood by the window, while outside the bougainvillea swayed in the wind, petals drifting down like silent witnesses to a sacred promise, a promise that James would protect his adopted daughter with all his heart and honor. In the modest living room, the warm glow of a yellow lamp filled the space with comfort. Outside, the night breeze drifted through the window, leaves rustling like a gentle background melody. James sat at the center of the wooden sofa, his broad arms encircling both Diep and little me. Diep rested her head lightly on her husband's shoulder. Her eyes still carried traces of weariness from a long day, yet deep within them shone a quiet peace. On the other side, Nee nestled firmly against her father's chest, her small hand gripping Diep's as if afraid to let go. On her innocent face bloomed a radiant smile, as though she believed that within her parents' embrace, every storm outside would fade into insignificance. James tightened his hold, his gaze fixed forward, deep, unwavering. In those eyes lay a universe of determination, the will to protect his wife and child, to shield this little family against any storm. He knew challenges awaited, his father's opposition, the scrutiny of others, the struggles of work and life. But instead of deterring him, each obstacle only made his resolve stronger. There was no need for grand vows or lofty declarations. His embrace around Diep and Nee, the fierce brightness in his eyes, was enough to affirm one truth: James would never let go, never allow harm to touch those he loved. In that profound stillness, a narrator's voice rose gently, blending with the image of their family huddled close. Life will never be free of trials. There will be storms, and there will be paths clouded with uncertainty. But with love, with trust, with steadfast resolve, every hardship can be overcome. This small family, bound by devotion, sacrifice, and sheltering arms, will forever remain a haven of peace, a firm anchor as they walk forward together. The scene closed with James sitting quietly, arms still wrapped protectively around Diep and Nee. Outside, the night wind seemed to soften, bowing before the strength of his unwavering love.